Welcome to the 14th season of the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Our panel includes Neil Riddell of the Altoona Mirror, Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com, 1966 team captain Mike Irwin, and Casey Kantz of WTAJ Sports. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, a firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells and Reed, orthodontics for children and adults. By the bookstore in the Park Hills Plaza, featuring the area's most complete selection of books, DVDs, and magazines. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. By Pacifico's Bakery, genuine Italian bread and rolls for your tailgating needs. By the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. Your rehab choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By J&P Auto, home of the $1,000 push, pull, or tow. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By the easy-to-use Big Book. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday. You can also see the NitWits on AltoonaMirror.com.
Alrighty, welcome to another edition of the NitWits. The panel here, and we're breaking down a narrow Week 5 win over Indiana, 16-10, the final from Bloomington on Saturday. Guys, wasn't pretty by any stretch. We'll get to the specifics in a minute, but this team finds a way to hang on, moves to 15-0 all-time against Indiana, as we do every week. We'll start with this side. And Mark, and what did you see from that game?
Well, you know, more winning ugly for Penn State, and I guess it's better than losing pretty. But yeah, you just have to wonder about this offense. Man, oh man, just blowing opportunities in the red zone, not getting it done. That's an Indiana team that was just lousy in a loss to North Texas, lost to a really bad Ball State team. Penn State should have blown that game open early and won by a lot. But at the end of the day, you know, they hang on for a win. You know, a lot of people are wondering, is this the worst 4-1 Penn State team that we've seen?
Certainly concerning, Neil.
Yeah, I just wonder, I mean, I think clearly McGloin has outplayed Rob Bolden now. You know, I was kind of open on the way they were doing it, you know, up to a certain point. But I think, you know, you're 5 games in, you got a real season shaper with Iowa coming up. And it's just kind of troubling. They keep bringing Bolden back. They sort of keep trying to treat it as equal. And I don't know how many more first quarters you can really give away. Yeah. Bolden's had some bad luck, but he also hasn't made a lot of things happen either.
Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I agree that McGloin's clearly outplayed Bolden, you know, the last so many weeks, but I can't see them changing what they've been doing all year long. I mean, I think, you know, especially going into an Iowa game and change it. I mean, they'd ruin Bolden if they would take him out of the picture at this point and start McGloin. I think McGloin seems to accept that role of going in relief better than Bolden probably would. So it's worked for them to 4-1. They haven't really impressed anybody with any of their victories, but they're still 4-1 going into the Iowa game, and I can't see them changing procedures this game.
Well, I'm sorry, but here's the thing about the whole relief thing, Mike, and it's not just you. I mean, Jay Paterno has said it, Joe has said it, fans have said it. I went up and directly asked McGloin about it, and he said no, he doesn't agree with that at all. He would much rather be the starter. He doesn't accept it. Right. And I would say this about Rob Bolden. Listen, he's been given the opportunity to start these games, and he's not got it done. I mean, McGloin's stats are that much better. If it's going to be such a psychological blow to him that he can't recover, then he should definitely not be the starting quarterback at Penn State.
Well, I don't think either one of them want to be second team. I mean, they're both good. I'm not saying good quarterbacks, but they're both vying for the job and competing with one another. So neither one wants to let that job go at this point. So who's going to be better down the road? I mean, clearly Bolden played better, but I think you roll back to a couple games.
McGloin, you mean, played better?
McGloin played better, yes. Bolden played better against the Alabama game and maybe the only game where he played better. But I think, you know, the upside potential with Bolden I still like more.
Yeah, but
I think McGloin will accept this
Mike,
role.
how long do you hold on to that? And since when has there been a must-play role at Penn State? Joe has made many tough decisions concerning quarterbacks over the years, and the backup has had to live with it. This kid has gotten every opportunity, I think, and given every benefit of the doubt. And I don't know how McGloin will play as a starter. I would be anxious to see that, and I do think that he deserves it.
I think he's earned it.
Yeah, so do I. I really quickly, though, if we could, we had it up on the screen there, the red zone issues. Mark, you alluded to it. 5 times yesterday in the red zone, the Bolden pick, the Silas Red fumble, there were no touchdowns, and I think that's, once again, an Indiana team that you have to beat and you have to almost blow out, but we kind of see why. I mean, you got to put those in for 6 when you get those opportunities.
Well, yeah, and on the season, I mean, I was digging through the stats today on the flight back, and, on the season, Penn State has more turnovers in the red zone 3 than it has touchdown passes. It's next to last in the Big Ten in red zone offense and last in red zone defense.
Wow.
Well, just one other point about, I mean, if you go to the third quarterback, McGregor, out of Evansburg is like a walk-on. So, I mean, you don't want to ruin Bolden's confidence and shatter it at this point, I think he's played well enough in certain games to deserve to still continue to keep playing.
But to keep starting?
Right.
Well, I think he has to. I mean, if you change the rotation at this point, I think psychologically it's going to affect him more.
I think you can make the case, as we just have, though, that McGloin, through these weeks, certainly deserves a chance to start with the numbers he's put up and equally with...
I mean, I just roll back and I still get nightmares when I think about, the bowl game last year against Florida when he threw the 5 interception against Ohio State last year. 2 real tough opponents, and he folded under the pressure. So I'm not sure we can expect a whole lot more from him this year.
When does he get the opportunity to recover from that, Mike, and to show that he's maybe a different quarterback? You're locked in a struggle with Temple and Eastern Michigan. You're unimpressive for a while against Indiana State and certainly Saturday. So without McGloin, if you're going to let Bolden proceed through a lot of these games, I don't think you'd be 4-1 right now.
And I would get off the psychological thing. They have a team psychologist. Go see him if you're worried about that.
But I think when Bolden's out on the field, he's looking over his shoulder the whole time. He's not playing with a lot of confidence right now. But I think
McGloin's
he's
not.
just ready to.
They pulled McGloin in the fourth quarter.
Look who we beat. We haven't beaten anybody great in any of these.
Yeah, but Bolden had the opportunity. Mark said it here. He thought the quarterback competition was over after the Alabama game. Bolden has not come out and seized it ever since then.
All right. Great points, guys. We'll continue to talk about just getting started on this edition of the NitWits. When we come back, we'll talk about the defense. Looked good for most of the day yesterday. We'll get these guys' thoughts. Stay with us. You're watching the NitWits.
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, a firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells and Reed, orthodontics for children and adults. By the bookstore in the Park Hills Plaza, featuring the area's most complete selection of books, DVDs, and magazines. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental.
Hi, I'm Daryl Clark.
And I'm Brett Brackett.
And you're watching the NitWits.
Look at that.
Retro.
Yeah, going back in time a little bit. Back here on a Week 5 edition of the NitWits, wrapping up a Penn State 16-10 win over Indiana. Guys, a Penn State defense that looked pretty good Saturday, gave up a third-quarter touchdown that made things interesting, but forced Dusty Keel to throw the football 45 times because, for the most part, we're able to contain the run. A couple turnovers as well. Let's start on this side this time. A good effort by the defense, a bad Indiana offense. What was more
Well, this
to
is
you?
the first time they really ran into a passing offense. I think prior to this, I mean, the Temples, Eastern Michigan were more of a running game. So it gave the defense an opportunity to see a passing offense. And the freshman that filled in, I thought, was very good. I mean, for his first game, he played well against Penn State. I don't think Penn State's secondary played particularly well, but I think that's the first time they ran into a passing offense. You'll see more of that this weekend.
Neil, Keel, thought he looked pretty good.
Well, I thought Indiana played with some spunk, and I'm sure if they played like they did Saturday, they would not have been lost to North Texas and some of the other teams. But Penn State has gotten that, usually gets most of the best shot of particularly the lower tier anymore. The defense forced 10 punts, and Indiana was 3 and 4 and out, I think 11 times. So I'm concerned a little bit about the injuries piling up now.
Yeah.
They played well without Lynn. and Motti, but they lose Morris, and now they played the freshman corner. So, you know, I don't think you can ask the defense to do any more than it has so far.
Yeah, I thought the good sign was that you lose an emotional leader like Motti, and I think they have a lot of talent at linebacker, but I was anxious to see how the team was kind of emotionally and stuff, and I thought they played well. And Lynn, obviously a leader in that secondary. Overall, yeah, I wouldn't put anything on the defense. The one thing that I would say about the defense, though, on Indiana's final drive there, they had a couple instances where they got their hands on footballs and did not just put the game away. And Tom Bradley talked about it after the game, we've been harping on it all year, and he's been harping on it, that they're +1 now in turnover margin, which isn't good enough for the caliber of competition that they've been playing. They should be better, and that's the one area where they definitely still have to pick it up.
Mark, when you get a tight game like that, yesterday would be a good example of that, I guess, down the stretch, and you're without a guy like Michael Motti. Defensively, where does that leadership kind of come from, where you need that stop? Where are these guys going to get it from?
Well, you know, I think right now clearly Devin Still has just stepped up, and yesterday or on Saturday, Jordan Hill was a beast. I mean, they have two outstanding defensive tackles, and there are much worse places to start with your leadership and kind of the foundation of the defense than a defensive tackle. I thought those guys were and have been tremendous all year.
Sean Stanley has become their best defensive end.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going on with Jack Crawford, but he's barely registering on the stat sheet. They didn't start Lattimore, but Stanley's forced 3 fumbles now in 2 weeks.
And the other linebacker that stepped up on Saturday was Hodges.
Sure did.
Had 11 tackles.
Sure did.
He put a lot of pressure on the quarterback at different times. So I think he's starting to come around, and I think he's improving a lot.
Certainly do. Guys, evident this team still has a little ways to go, but let's look at a couple things when we come back, especially looking at what some of the other teams in the Big Ten are doing. We'll stack up the Nittany Lions with those other teams. Look at this team moving forward in conference play as well and beyond. It's next. Stay close.
The NitWits are brought to you by Pacifico's Bakery, genuine Italian bread and rolls for your tailgating needs. By the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs.
Now back to Nitwits. A roundtable look at Nittany Lion football.
Welcome back. Penn State over Indiana on Saturday, 16-10. Bloomington now 15-0 all time. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive line a little bit, Neil, and some of the things you've seen from them so far through 5 weeks.
They seem mistake-prone. They pulled Chima Coley, who I think was one of their better leaders, but he's had a couple false starts. They also had a tight end, Andrew Zerba, who has been prone to the big mistake. He had the holding penalty that wipes out a touchdown. Now, I don't know if he would have scored without the hold. And, you know, he had the big fumble against Alabama. I feel bad for him. He's had some adversity this year. But those are areas that it's just become a problem to really get into a flow in the red zone.
Yeah, as many rushing yards as Penn State had on Saturday, you didn't get the sense that they could get it done when they absolutely needed it to get it done on key third downs. And, you know, that's been a problem all season. This offensive line has done a good job in pass protection, only giving up 4 or 5 sacks all year. But in terms of generating the run, it's just not gotten it done, especially at key times. And we all know in the Big Ten, if you can't run the ball, boy, you're not going to compete.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Mike. I mean,
yeah, they moved the ball between the 20s, but they get down in the red zone. They haven't been able to capitalize in the red zone, whether it's somebody moving on the offensive line or fumbling the ball. Silas Red fumbles one time. Bolden throws the interception the other time down there. So they have, you know, against the better teams, they can't afford those kind of mistakes.
You know, you got a team like Iowa coming in this week, especially going to have to find a way to run the football, and they did against Indiana. We should make note of that. But you're going to need that big performance this week.
I thought Dukes was a bright spot Saturday. I'd be curious. I mean, he's really a bruising specimen. He's 250 pounds, and he's a good change of pace for Red. I mean, it took Red. Had a pretty good game, but he carried 29 times. So, but I thought Duke stood out, and they're piling up injuries. With Beecham is still out. They're having trouble getting the ball to Suey. As far as he was out on a flare, and I think that's one thing Bolden needs to do a little better. Suey's been open. They haven't thrown the screen pass very well.
Yeah, and, you have to wonder about Dukes, though. When they were in key third down situations, they put the day kid out there, a former walk-on. I assume he's on scholarship now, and I'm guessing he was out there because he's a better blocker. And, Dukes is this big, burly guy, runs really hard, but until he's able to pass block, I don't see them playing him a whole lot more. You know how touchy Joe is about that situation.
A lot of it has to do, the running backs are as good as their offensive line.
Yep.
Dukes had some big holes running through. And I get concerned sometimes when they get down in that toward the end zone there, like Silas Red running sideways rather than straight ahead, and trying to drive straight into the line rather than making cuts and going outside rather than inside. So I think a lot of the Duke's yardage has to do with the blocking he was getting up front.
Well, there's still, they put Farrell in for Chima. They've been alternating Urschel and Dante Pennell. One thing I'd like to throw out is it looks like Anthony Farah has helped really stabilize their field goal kicking.
Yeah.
He's
just
done a
the
good
kicking
job.
game in general. The
Right.
punting's been pretty good, although he had one touchback there at a key time, kicking off really well. In terms of issues, and Penn State's coming off a win, and we're treating it like a post-mortem kind of, but, in all seriousness.
If they don't correct it, we're going to have more.
Right. One of the things that really jumped out at me was that some of the guys making mistakes are the fifth-year seniors. Neil mentioned Zerba with a hold, Chima jumping offside, Powell, letting a ball hit off of him. These are guys who have been around. In the better Penn State teams, the veteran players are not the ones making those mistakes. You live with a second-year guy throwing a pick, or you live with a second-year guy fumbling. But these other guys, you can't afford to be making these mistakes that they're making. Some of the personal fouls, these things that are happening, they got to tighten all of that up.
That goes in with a couple of things we were talking about earlier with when you look for leadership and when you look for not making those big mistakes in conference play especially. Those are guys you don't want to be having them from, certainly.
Right.
So we'll talk about that as well. Did you want to?
Yeah, you've also put the ball on the ground 11 times in the last 4 games.
Yeah, very concerning as well. We found out a little bit about the Big Ten Conference as a whole a little bit more yesterday. 7th-ranked Wisconsin absolutely put it on. 8th-ranked Nebraska, 48-17 the final there. The Badgers look to be kind of the elite of this conference, guys. Top 5 team in the country as well. Have scored at least 49 points in their 4 of their 5 wins. If we can, just take a little bit of time here to compare Penn State and this Wisconsin team for the first 5 weeks.
Well, right now, if Penn State was going to Wisconsin, they'd be getting at least 3 touchdowns. And the great Penn State teams over the years were built around the offense, the great Penn State offenses, 81, 82, 94. And you take a look at this Wisconsin team and their points of emphasis, and it all starts up front. And I think that's really an area that the whole program at Penn State needs to reevaluate.
Well, Wisconsin also caught a break in getting the transfer quarterback in there who's just, you go from having this, run-oriented, that's all they do. Now, all of a sudden, this kid is unbelievable. He's done a great job for them. So they're really balanced, and no question the class of the conference. They're going to lose one along the way because they always do. They blow out people left and right, and they always lose one they're not supposed to. Don't think it's going to be Penn State, though, this year.
But I don't think it's going to happen this year because of the transferred quarterback. That Russell Wilson that came up from North Carolina State has been outstanding. And he's a 5th year, and I guess when you're in grad school, you're allowed to switch and be eligible to play right away. It's too bad Penn State didn't hear about him earlier.
Would you have been worried about Bolden's psyche? If you got this kid, you would have ruined him.
He's also a minor league baseball player. He played double-A baseball.
He could have played for the Spikes.
He's pretty good. Maybe the opposite of curveball would have been there.
That could have been a
Joe had a better relationship with the Spikes.
Looking at it, at this stage, the way they are, Wisconsin. Go ahead, Neil.
Well, I was going to say, Wisconsin is a national championship contender for sure. The fact that Penn State doesn't play Michigan and Michigan State may be a benefit this year because Brady Hoke looks like he's doing a good job there. I think Ohio State may be beatable, but the rest of the schedule, save maybe Purdue, is going to be a toss-up for Penn State.
Yeah, Illinois is playing better. You wonder where they're going to be by the end of the year, but Ohio State's getting a bunch of guys back in the next couple of weeks, so that's going to be important for the Buckeyes.
Certainly, big week for Penn State as well. Iowa, of course, comes to Beaver Stadium where they've had success in recent years. I think that's safe to say, guys. Can Penn State knock the Hawkeyes off? Our Week 6 picks are next. Stay with us.
The Nitwits are brought to you by J&P Auto, home of the $1,000 push, pull, or tow. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By the easy-to-use Big Book, And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday.
I'm Penn State's Chimo Coley, and you're watching the NitWits.
All righty, welcome back on the NitWits. A 3:30 kickoff with Iowa awaits the Nittany Lions this week, and our Nitwit of the week to my left. Neil, you're going to pick first this week.
I'm glad
Congratulations.
I broke into the win column. It's a tough group. This has been a frustrating series for Penn State. Iowa has a week off. They've been able to score. They put 40 on Iowa State, 30 on Pitt. Until I see more consistent offense for Penn State, I'm going to go Iowa 17, Penn State 13. There's only one coach who ever outcoached Joe worse than Ferentz, and that's the Bear.
Mark?
I was tempted to go Iowa 6, Penn State 4, but that would have been too easy. And I think I think Iowa isn't the type of defensive team it was a few years ago. I really have trouble, from what I've seen of Penn State through this 4-1 start against some of the inferior competition, not really stepping up the way I thought they would offensively. Imagine them scoring a ton of points. I think the defense will play well, but it kind of as an homage to the 6-4, I'm going to go Iowa 16, Penn State 14.
6-4. Remember that game, of course.
Very strategic.
Yeah. Very nice. We know what you're doing.
Yeah.
We know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Hawkeyes team. Should I go next? And then
Whatever you want.
We'll leave
You're the host.
Well,
he's like General Patton directing traffic at the intersection of.
It all builds up to Mike. We know.
Yeah.
There's strategy. We know there's strategy.
I don't have a ball yet. I'm just trying to get into the game.
We're trying to get you there, Mike.
All right. He has 3 balls, so he should go right away.
There we go.
Anyways, before we get to Mike's pick, the PSU offense is still in question to me. It was a challenging pick, though, for me this week, but I still think Penn State would, like you guys, a couple steps behind. I say Iowa 27, Penn State 19.
Well, you guys are making it easy on me now. I mean,
giving you every
3
chance.
Iowa picks, so I got to go with the Nittany Lions. And you look at it, Iowa's 3-1. They're coming in. Penn State's 4-1. Iowa was off last week, so they had a whole week to get ready for us. But, Iowa's big threat is their quarterback's a pretty good thrower. Against Pitt, he had 399 yards passing, so that's where Penn State's concern is. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Penn State's going to win 17-14. Penn State over Iowa, 17-14.
Well, Mike, I'm sure we're all probably rooting for you a little bit.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
We'll be.
I'm not.
Yeah, right.
You're taking a look at the updated standings of the Nitwit of the Year. You see Mark and Neil getting on the board tonight with the Nitwit of the Week. Mark's got one. Mike?
I'm going to have a
Is this
ball.
the week?
I'm going to have a ball this weekend.
Is this the week?
I'm going to have a ball this weekend.
I think we certainly hope
More
Mike
ways
gets the
of
ball,
lining
Neil
up.
said.
Pressure's on Penn State to get Mike a ball.
Definitely. Let's see if it happens. We'll talk to you next after what we hope will be a Penn State win over Iowa. Thanks for joining us tonight. Have a good night. We'll talk to you next week.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial, a firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells and Reed, orthodontics for children and adults. By the bookstore in the Park Hills Plaza, featuring the area's most complete selection of books, DVDs, and magazines. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just Ask Rental. By Pacifico's Bakery, genuine Italian bread and rolls for your tailgating needs. By the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. Your rehab choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By J&P Auto, home of the $1,000 push, pull, or tow. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By the easy-to-use Big Book. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday. You can also see the Nitwits on AltoonaMirror.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.